Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Chasing Hope with me, Catherine Abraham. Today's episode relates to the history of King Solomon, one of the wisest kings that ever lived. And it is he who set a very valuable and worthwhile precedent for every Christian youth on the planet. Because he was one of the few people who, at a very tender age, asked God for just one thing. He asked for wisdom. So many times when we as young people are asked by our parents or by any of our generous donors around us, what do you want? Someone will ask for a gift in terms of a camera, in terms of a car, in terms of a new job. We're basically asking people for materialistic stuff. But here is someone who, at a very young age, realized that all of that was meaningless if he did not have God working in his life. And what better way to ask God to manifest himself in your life than to ask him for wisdom? And this is where Solomon makes his entry and his mark on the world. Of course, if you read the scriptures properly, especially when you read the Bible, you will realize that some of the most prolific writings are all belonging to King Solomon. He talked about life, he talked about youth, he talked about how one needs to maintain themselves even through adversities. He also teaches us how we go forward, and he reminds us to remember God every single day when he says, "Remember thy Creator in the days of thy youth." So the idea is that Solomon was different. He was the son of King David, and he could have wanted anything and he could have got it. But all that he wanted was wisdom. Now, it's very interesting to note that his life is in stark comparison to his father, King David. King David's entire life was smeared with blood and bloody campaigns. Basically, that is the reason why God rejected him. Even though he had won over everything, God rejected him as the architect of the temple that was supposed to be dedicated. Now, at this time, the question arises, how do we as Christians establish who Solomon really was? Well, for the most part, when you look at the stories of King Solomon, the most prominent of these is the story of the two mothers. So the story goes that one day King Solomon was approached by two women. Now, each of the women claimed to be the mother of a tiny infant. Obviously, the child was crying because he was in the middle of a lot of chaos. And he was not in a position to answer who his mother was. It's a dilemma. And yet, Solomon solved it in a couple of minutes. He called for his guards and he told them to chop the baby into two pieces and to give one piece to each mother. Now, the real mother got absolutely paranoid and anxious, and she said, "No, I would much rather have my child grow as a healthy lad in somebody else's arms than not see him ever again." But the other woman kept silent, and that is how Solomon determined who was the real mother. Now, this is just one of many, many examples of King Solomon's wisdom. But more importantly, it becomes important to establish that, especially when it comes to the Christian faith itself, we have our differences even within. So, say for example, the Eastern Orthodox Church hallows King Solomon as a prophet and a king, and they also go ahead and give him the title of a saint. But that is not the case when it comes to Christians such as the Adventists and other Protestant communities. Now, when we look at the biblical account, Solomon is supposed to have had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Wow, that's a handful. But at the same time, if you look at it, you will realize that the reason why he married so many was not just out of licentiousness. He was actually trying to maintain the borders on all sides. It's a very ingenious method and one that is absolutely not recommended in modern day. But of course, at that point in time, that's all that they had to say about him marrying these different princesses and making sure that he had peace and he maintained that peace with each of those kings. Now, at this time, his marriage to the Pharaoh's daughter, for example, was completely a political alliance, along with others who were in tow. And this also establishes the fact that he may very well have been one of the first diplomats of the world, because he is the first person who went ahead and consciously stopped the idea of having a war to make his point. Up until then, up until King David's time at least, you see that there have been wars continuously. And all of the Bible up until then sees a lot of bloodshed. But when you see King Solomon's reign and regime, that's when you see things toned down. Now the question arises, how do I know that the same Solomon, whose wisdom and wealth and whose stories spread far and wide, is actually a real person? He really existed. So for this, right up to 1993, you will see that there was a lot of skepticism as to whether King David existed, whether King Solomon existed. Then the question was about Solomon's temple, which was a disputed fact until there was a stone inscription that was found, and that stone inscription became a reason to realize that yes, there was enough and more remarkable evidence for the reliability of these biblical texts. Now, in 1993, a tablet was found. This tablet had an inscription by King Hazael of Aram Damascus, who existed somewhere around 825 BC. Now, King Hazael of Aram indicated that his father, Hadad II, was victorious in battle against the foot soldiers, charioteers, and horsemen of the king of the house of David. So this is the first time that the house of David gets established, and people now began to believe, especially the historians began to believe, that yes, King David actually existed. The newly revealed sandstone tablet much later had a 15-line inscription in ancient Hebrew. Now, this is very similar to the writings found in 2 Kings chapter number 12, verses 1 to 6, and then later 11 to 17. In the inscription, King Joash tells priests to take holy money to buy quarry stones and timber and copper and labor to carry out the duty with faith. The last part of the inscription indicates that if the work is completed well, the Lord will protect his people with a blessing. Now, geological studies of the stone and inscription by Israel's Geological Institute confirmed its authenticity. So the carbon-14 dating confirms that this particular writing was completed in the 9th century BC. And of course, they also found microscopic flecks of gold that might have probably been burnt into the stone when the temple containing both the tablet, of course, and the gold objects was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. Now, according to Amos Bean, the then director of the institute, they could be from gold-plated objects, for all you know, from the house of a very rich man, or it could be from a temple. He says it's hard to believe that anyone would know how to do these things to just make it look real. So obviously these things exist, and they prove that there is something called as the House of David, and yes, it by extension proves that King David existed and King Solomon as well. Now, it's important also to understand that the new find is significant because it corroborates the existence of the Temple of Solomon, which up until then was just one of these legends. It was a part of a folklore, it was looked at as a myth. But now we can say with absolute genuinity that yes, this particular temple existed. Now, why was the Solomon's temple so very important? For many reasons. If you look at it in the terms of a religious reason, yes, it was God who instructed Solomon, very specific details being given to him, and it was he who was meant to construct the temple, as I mentioned before, because King David was rejected and he could not do it. And God gave Solomon some very, very specific ideas of how to build that temple, and hence it was a divine inscription. It was a divine way of letting Solomon know what God wanted from him. This temple was important also from the point of view that yes, while Solomon was wise and while he had a lot of people around him, he needed to keep his spiritual connection intact. Now, it is also a recorded fact that Solomon did go astray because many of his wives belonged to religions other than him. They believed in idolatry, they believed in worshipping the stone, and he himself began to also follow them out of sheer respect and love. But at the same time, it also did not go down too well with God because God found that Solomon was drawing away from him. So, these are some facts that we need to respect from a time that is now well past. And of course, the most important fact when it comes to King Solomon is not just about a man who has all the wisdom in the world, but is somebody who was divinely inspired to construct a temple that was according to God's liking. And yes, of course, the temple itself no longer exists in its physical format. So we really do not know now where it is hidden and buried. But yes, we do realize that this particular temple did exist. While we're looking at all of this in terms of history and archaeology, and of course, when it comes to the faith, the most important thing that we need to understand is that biblical texts now are getting their reliability from recorded history. And that is why we can no longer say that parts of it are a myth or these people who have been mentioned in the Bible were just some cooked up stories, cooked up characters, fiction stories. In fact, they now have proper evidence to support their existence. Having said all of this, yes, we have one last thing before we close for the day, and that is that whenever you look at your own life today, you need to ask yourself, especially if you are a young Christian, ask yourself how much time have you been spending in asking God for wisdom? How much time have you been asking for answers? How much time have you been asking just for materialistic things? When you come to this realization, try and change because it's never too late to start again. And it is this self realization which will enable you to maybe not have the extent of wisdom of King Solomon, but definitely you will be able to make wiser decisions and use your power of discernment far better off. So be careful about the decision making skills that you have, and before you make any big decision for your life, for someone else's life, ask God, go on your knees, ask Him for help, ask Him for support, ask Him for strength to endure the outcome as well, because not all of our decisions are always going to be right. And yet, once we know that we've surrendered our decisions and our decision making to God, He is going to be there to take care of us, to inspire us, and of course, to ensure that we are becoming better with each day and with each decision. I hope you've all enjoyed yourself in this episode, and I look forward to meeting you in the next episode, which will be another exciting and engaging episode on Chasing Hope. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to your comments, your thoughts, your prayer requests. If you have any prayer requests, please feel free to log on to our website www.chasinghopewithcatherine.com, where you will also get the past episodes of this particular series. More importantly, we are now available on Spotify, we are available on iTunes, Spreaker, and also JioSaavn in India. So do tune in. Make sure you are encouraging your friends and family members also to listen to this particular series. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.